So welcome to tonight's webinar on practical tips for creating a digital strategy to engage colleagues and community members. I am your host, Amy Perlman, urologist and men's health specialist at the University of Iowa. My role is to introduce our esteemed panelists, keep an eye on the chat box, and keep the conversation moving. I ask that you not be offended should I interrupt if we need to move on to the next topic. We'd like to thank the Sexual Medicine Society of North America for their support with this initiative. All right, let's start with some introductions. Let's get a drum roll, please. All right, enough of that. We got Nanan Thirumalavavan, fellowship-trained urologist who specializes in male infertility, microsurgery, sexual dysfunction, and men's health. He is chief of male reproductive and sexual health at Cleveland Clinic Medical Center. Next up, we have Rachel Rubin, fellowship-trained urologist at Intim Medicine Specialists in Washington, D.C. She specializes in the treatment of sexual dysfunction in both men and women. And then we have Sue Goldstein, certified sexuality educator and clinical research coordinator for San Diego Sexual Medicine. She is a site manager for clinical trials and is responsible for educational programs and fundraising initiatives. Each of our presenters tonight will share their screens and present for about 10 minutes. We will save Q&A for the last 20 to 30 minutes, and I encourage you to post questions and comments and concerns in the chat box, and I'll keep an eye out for those during the session. So Nanan, let's start with you, man.
All right, thank you very much, Amy. I love the enthusiasm and I appreciate the introduction. Can you guys hear me okay? All right, fantastic. So thank you again, Amy, for the introduction, and thank you to the SMS for having me and allowing us to sort of put this on, allowing us to speak. So to start off, I have no disclosures related to this talk. I wanted to start off a little bit to tell you a little bit about me and where I came from, where I trained. So I did my urology residency at Boston University and Boston Medical Center. I actually was there for medical school and undergrad as well. Obviously an institution with a long history in treatment of sexual dysfunction. And then I did my fellowship at Baylor College of Medicine with Larry Lipschultz and Dory Lamb. Obviously a institution that sort of has its own reputation and has had one for a very long time. So in June of 2019, I started as faculty at university hospitals and Case Western in men's health and infertility. So I'm approaching this sort of talk as a person who's not really good at social media, right? So I want to give advice to people who are not very good at this, right? And specifically for people who are going into practice or pretty early on in their practice and how they can sort of use the resources they have to improve their reach. So you need to start by deciding what your goals are and who you're trying to market to. And there's two major things you want to think about. First, you want to market to your referral sources and then your patients. And that's how I'm going to split up the talk. Your referral sources are vastly going to be primary care doctors, other urologists, both within and outside of your practice, endocrinologists, both adult and pediatric for the fertility side of things, cardiologists, oncologists, and then for the fertility side of my practice, I work closely with the reproductive endocrinology and infertility doctors, as well as general OB and gynecologists. So how do you get the word out? I really want to emphasize, especially if you're joining a large health system like I did, leverage the resources that you have. We have a pretty large marketing department here at University Hospitals, as well as someone internal to our urology institute that helps us with marketing, getting the word out when we have new faculty join. So I had sort of our marketing department put together a piece on sort of who I am, what I do, what I can bring to the table. And then we do a video as well introducing ourselves. And this is great for patients to get to know you before they come and see you. They like to kind of know what you're like. And then I tried to give as many talks as I possibly could. This included sort of grand rounds, didactics, to anyone who would pretty much have me. Meet and greets are incredibly important. You know, before I had any sort of an online presence, I tried to make a point of going and meeting as many of the doctors as I could. Obviously, this was much easier pre-COVID, but I went and met a lot of the physicians just sort of door to door almost. Luckily, again, being part of a bigger health system, I had resources to help me do this. I was able to reach out to practice coordinators and administrators in different primary care offices. Within our health system, we actually have people with a sort of physician outreach coordinators that will take an afternoon, pick a region, for us, a different region of Cleveland, and drive us around from office to office to meet everyone in the area. So So this is, again, all before I even had really an online presence, to get a sense of what the need was in the community that I was serving. And then, of course, I spoke to the residency and fellowship program coordinators. I was lucky enough, and I have the REI fellows rotate with me. I have medical students that rotate with me. And I also have family medicine residents that come through and rotate in my clinic as well to learn about men's health. When you're approaching these interactions, I think it's important to remember and try and really portray what you can bring to the table, right? What is your value add? And I think there's a few ways that we can help our colleagues. First, we ease the burden of patient management. So especially when you're starting out in practice, you don't want to be the urologist that says, hey, I only want to see the ED patient that's failed pills, vacuum, injections, everything. I only want to see the patient that's ready for an implant. That's not going to happen, and that's not going to get you referrals. So I was willing to see, and still am willing to see, any patient that needs to be seen or wants to be seen. I'm huge on patient handouts. Anyone in my clinic knows that I don't like a patient waiting without reading something that's educational and teaches them something. So we had some primary care doctors who were running into trouble with their patients not being able to get medicines like Cialis, Viagra, etc. So we actually came up with a handout simply on how to use GoodRx and handed it out to a lot of the primary care doctors. And on the top right-hand corner is our name and our phone number as well. So when they had trouble, when those patients had more issues, they ended up reaching out to us. And it got us a lot of patients that way. And you know, in men's health, there's a lot of situations where you're going to be the first doctor that this man sees in 5, 10, maybe even 20 years. This erectile dysfunction may be the first reason he comes to a doctor. So this is a really good opportunity for you to refer back patients and get them plugged into primary care. So I've been able to help our primary care doctors that way. And when you get a new referral, it's obviously important to take great care of your patients. In the beginning of your practice, you're going to have plenty of time to do this. Sit down, learn as much as you can about your patients. This will be the best marketing you'll ever have, is when your patients tell their friends, their family members, etc. Similarly, use that opportunity to build a relationship, especially when I have something that's a little out of the norm. I would call the primary care doctor, reach out, and try and sort of touch base and see what they're thinking. Now that's sort of what I have on marketing towards your physician colleagues. Let's talk more about patient outreach. And this is where the digital presence really comes in. You know, we all know that men's health is not like any of the other specialties out there. The patients just don't come to you. You kind of have to make sure they know what you're there for. So I did, and I still do, a good amount of patient directed talks. There are industry supported ones. Our institution helps put some on. And a lot of these now with COVID have obviously turned into webinars. So I did one here in June of 2020 with one of my partners, Dr. Aaron Loeb, on both testosterone and erectile dysfunction. And this is, again, geared only to patients. Coloplast and Boston Scientific will also sort of help set ones up for you, so you can speak directly to patients. And then I worked on getting sort of my online presence. Now, I only started this maybe a few months into my practice. This is not something I did as a fellow, probably something I should have done earlier, but certainly something I've worked on since then. So a few tips to sort of see what to work on, and I'm sure my colleagues here will be able to tell you even more than I can. Pick up your Google My Business profile. If you know what address you're going to be working at, and you can get a postcard sent there, Google will let you claim it as your business, so you can control the marketing and everything that's associated with that Google listing. This is incredibly key. The first quarter after I picked that up, it immediately got me, the 800 searches only gone up significantly since then. And you get some analytics on where these searches are coming from, how you're being found, and sort of a steady trend up. And then this is obviously huge, and Sue is going to talk about this in much more detail than I am, but build your own website. I have little to no web knowledge or understanding, and so I, of course, contracted out to a company to do this for me. I do recommend picking up every single possible domain you can think of, which is what I did for anything in the Ohio or Cleveland area related to men's health. I tried to get it and direct it back to this main page. So this is mine. It has sort of my name, has a good amount of information and education, specifically information on the conditions I treat, how we can help, and most importantly, how easily they can get in for an appointment. Try to be as detailed as possible so that patients kind of have a good sense of what we do and what we don't do before coming into the office. And then I would highly recommend checking your listings. This helps for your search engine optimization. If everything is lined up, you want every website that has your name on it to have the correct information, have your locations correct, and your phone numbers and contact information correct. So some of the ones are, the Doximity, Healthgrades, WebMD. You want to make sure all of those are lined up. Similarly, on industry websites, depending on what sort of things that you do, you want to make sure that you're listed in all of their physician finders. So the most common ones, obviously, Coloplast, Boston Scientific, you want to make sure you're listed there. Endo for their products. Some of the compounding pharmacies now have their own physician finders, so you want to make sure you're listed there. So the patients can find you in a number of different ways. And now social media, again, I have some of these, not all of them. I am by far the least qualified compared to the other people on this sort of webinar. So I'm going to leave that to everyone else here. So just some take-home messages, do whatever you can to get the word out. I do think it does begin a little bit with the grassroots, sort of going door to door, talking to people, and really keep in mind, how can you add value? How can you help both your colleagues, your patients, and obviously their patients as well? And then, of course, build your online presence and your brand. Thank you again for the opportunity, and look forward to sort of hearing questions towards the end here.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I love at the end of your slide, you put your social media handle on there. And I think that's a great tip for people as well. I think for any presentation is somewhere within that PowerPoint, regardless of the audience, is to put your social media and contact information up there. So thank you so much. All right, Rachel, you're up next.
Hi, everybody. All right. So I was asked to talk a little bit about how to reach out to other colleagues. And I want to just tell you, I wasn't fancy. I didn't do a PowerPoint presentation, but I'm going to take you through a couple of interesting things. And I'm going to use Twitter. Most people know me from Twitter. I have an Instagram. I have no idea how to use it. I'm actually doing an Instagram live as soon as this is over with Dr. Fenwa Millhouse, who has 25,000 Twitter followers and is the most amazing general urologist ever. And so I'm learning. I'm learning from my colleagues how to use different social media forums, because these are where all the patients are. And I can't tell you how many patients I have gotten this year from Twitter, from Instagram, from Facebook, from word of mouth, all these patient forums. So as Amy and I both know, every person with POIS or PSSD or PFS, and if you don't know what those are, you haven't been in sexual medicine long enough, but those patients come to Dr. Goldstein and myself and Dr. Perlman because they talk about us a lot on those message boards, and they all share their knowledge and what they learned at appointments, and the good, the bad, and the ugly. So there's a lot of things that are said about a lot of people on those message boards. So I just want to tell briefly my story. When I was a fellow, so just so you know, I used to take propranolol to speak in front of people. I called it my performance enhancing drug. If there is anyone out there who's not good at public speaking, who gets dry mouth and their heart is racing and they have an out of body experience, I had that even if I gave grand rounds for 5 people. And something awful happened to me where I couldn't do it anymore. I got pregnant and it was awful. So I got pregnant and I wasn't able to take my propranolol during my fellowship. And then this even crazier thing happened to me, and I can actually pinpoint the moment I started getting loud and mouthy and on social media and in people's faces. And it was the minute Donald Trump became president. And that night, whatever your politics are, I'm in DC, so I got CNN patients and Fox News patients. Whatever your politics are, at that moment, that night, I remember where I was at Sue Goldstein's dinner table with Eugene Rhee and Ashley Winter and Sue and Erwin. And I said, if that guy can be president, well, I can do anything. I can literally do anything. Nobody is going to stop me. I am my worst critic. I think I'm not smart enough. I'm not I'm just a fellow. What do I know? And I started tweeting. And I started using Twitter as a way to reach out to other colleagues. And all of a sudden, it was working out in my favor. I went from 0 Twitter followers, and I have now 4,690, all because, and I just looked now, I didn't know how many I had, all because I got mouthy on Twitter. And I reached out to John Mulhall and Abe Morgan-Tyler, and I do Google alerts, and I get, I have an alert for testosterone, for the clitoris, for the vestibule, for women's sexual health, and I get all these articles, every research article. So every week I see what's new in the field, and I'm the first one to post these articles. And I actually use it as sort of my tool of like, well, I want to read this paper later. I want to make sure I have it. And so Twitter is kind of my look back. I say, oh, there was that paper on PDE5s decreasing cardiovascular mortality. I'm going to tweet about it so I can get the word out, and then I can go back and reference it later because I know it's on my Twitter. And so that's sort of how I started Twitter. And I also used it for conferences of slides that I wanted to remember and I wanted to hold on to, and to disseminate information. And if you follow me on Twitter, I'm very on brand. I don't go outside of my sort of sexual medicine brand. I was actually the very first person to use the hashtag SexMed. I was the first, that's my claim to fame, if you ask me. And I just want to show you briefly, I'm going to share my screen with you. If you go to twitter.com, okay, and I just learned this because I was looking this up for, this is what you see. So this is my name, right? This is my little thing. I'm a board certified fellowship trained male and female sexual medicine, Washington, DC. You can hashtag make sex great again. That's my homage to Donald Trump. You can put your website, you know, and this is, so I follow 1,000 people and I have, you know, this many followers. And then you can see your tweets. So if you want, you can do things like teach. I do a lot of teaching. Not a lot of people do what I do. This I did during AUA 2019, and I taught people about genitourinary syndrome of menopause, and I did what's called a tweetorial. And this was actually one of the most popular things, and one of the most popular tweets of AUA of 2019. And I went on using data, using articles, using pictures for people, all the vulva pictures everyone wants to look at. And it's a pinned tweet. This is how to treat genitourinary syndrome of menopause. And now if I'm with patients, now I can, and I'm in a computer, I can just go to my Twitter and I can literally teach them about genitourinary syndrome of menopause and give them all the information right there. So you can use it to teach people. You can also check, and one thing I found, you can go to analytics and you can see sort of how you're doing, kind of a 28-day summary, if you will. And you can see in the last 28 days, 162,000 people have seen my tweets. That's insane. I'm a nobody. You shouldn't know about me, right? It's crazy. And so what 23,000 people saw my tweet to @GoodRx, can you help us? If you want heterosexual penetrative sex, then you need a healthy penis and a healthy vagina. Yet the cost to each of these is unfairly different. Who do I need to talk to in order to change this? And then you get a picture of, you know, the cash price, which Nanan was just talking about, which is brilliant, by the way, is teaching people how to use GoodRx to get super cheap sildenafil, right? But vaginal estrogen is a lot more expensive. So I use it to advocate, I use it to tweet, and I actually have really amazing colleagues. So if you go to your messages, Amy Perlman and I were, these are my DMs, these are my direct messages. Amy Perlman and I just today were talking, she tweeted about how to treat POIS, post-orgasmic illness syndrome. And I've had unbelievable success recently with using antihistamines. And guess what? We're writing a paper now. We've been emailing all day with a basic scientist and 2 medical students, and we're going to do a project together. I have a primary care doctor who uses me to, you know, to share her information, and I have friendships here. So if I ask, you know, a bunch of people, you know, hey, is there a sex therapist in DC? Or hey, what do you use for a block? You know, I can ask, you know, everybody those questions, and it's been incredible. Listen, John Mulhall shouldn't know who I am, but he does. You know, Abe Morgenthaler shouldn't know who I am, but he does. You know, Dan Shosky, you know, if I have a question about pelvic pain, I just send him a DM and he'll write me right back. And so it's sort of this access that you can get as a fellow, that you can get as a medical student, that you can just reach out to colleagues. And also you can use it, I use it to lift other people up, right? To retweet a medical student, to support a colleague who is saying something. And it's a really friendly place, actually. It can get ugly and not that friendly sometimes, but I really enjoy Twitter. You know, I think there are benefits. I think if you're going to reach doctor to doctor, Twitter is a really great place to do it. Med Twitter has many different subspecialties on there. There's a lot of comedians and funny people, and you can, you know, if you want to ask a gynecologist something, you can really have access to it. If you want to get in trouble for making fun of a gynecologist, you can be like Kent DeLay and say really stupid things on there, and you can see, you know, him get eaten alive. And so that's fun to watch. So there's a whole culture on Twitter of so many different subspecialties, and the sexual medicine providers are really great because it's not just urologists. It's a lot of cool sex therapists and pelvic floor physical therapists. There's a lot of great gynecologists. And so it's more of a sexual medicine community than sometimes we see at our own conferences. So I'm really big on Twitter. Instagram is a new frontier for me. TikTok is one of those things. Josh Gonzalez is doing an amazing job on TikTok. And we all, we need to have more lessons on how do you do it? I don't have plans when I do it. I sort of have divine inspiration of like, I just saw a patient and now I want to say this, and I just say it, or I share a paper. And I can't tell you, the genitopelvic dysesthesia paper just came out, and it's, Sue can tell you, it's gotten, thousands and thousands and thousands of downloads, which never happened before social media. And so I stink at writing. I'm not good at certain kinds of research, and yet I can disseminate information quickly and really highlight why it's important, what's important, and it can get to the patients, which I think we're not doing enough of. And with social media, we're really starting to get there. So I'm happy to answer any questions. There's no magic to it. It's just realize that you can have a voice. You don't have to be John Mulhall to have a voice and to be the editor of JSM, to be the smartest person in the room and have a voice. You have so much to teach, right? We know so much. We all have our spiels that we get to patients. We all have the things that we say that resonate with patients, and we can, really do a great job in this field and get more people interested in med students as well, which is very cool, which Amy is amazing at.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rachel. That was a very lively discussion, and I'm looking forward to some open discussion after Sue presents. So that brings us to Sue Goldstein. Hit it.
So with 6 degrees of separation, I'm going to give you a little bit of a history lesson as I go to share my screen. So in 2005, my husband, Erwin Goldstein, who you probably may not know me, but I'm sure you all know who he is, he retired from Boston University School of Medicine. And what he did there is we'd started the Institute for Sexual Medicine at BUSM. And when he retired, that shut that down. And that meant I lost my job because I did educational programs for BU. So we had to start life all over again. So while we're significantly older than everybody watching this program, and it took us 2 years to figure out where we were going to end up. And in 2007, we started a practice in San Diego. We were, in all honesty, we were in our late 50s, starting something brand new. We'd never had a private practice. We had no patients. BU, if the official word from BU was, if anyone called, we have no idea where Dr. Goldstein is. So we literally started from square one. We drove across, I have no relevant disclosures. We drove across the country, 3,000 miles. And as we drove, we did sightseeing. And in between, we put together content for a website. We knew we had the framework being built, but we had to write, all of the information that we could. And literally that's what we did for 3,000 miles. It was an 8-day trip. And by the time we got to San Diego, we had a significant part of the website done. We knew that for content, we wanted to include disease states, diagnostic tests, and treatment options. Those were the basic tenets. We have always believed that education is the high road. One of the things we did when we opened the practice is Erwin gave a lot of dinner lectures in the West Coast, in part because the practice was slow starting and we needed other income, and in part because if you teach somebody else about what you do, they will then start doing it a little bit and realize, oh my God, that's too complicated for me, I'm going to refer. So that became a referral base. But everything we do is based on this education. The only advertisements we have ever done was for clinical trials. We've never done any ads for our practice, but we teach. So one of the things that everyone should know is patients have to figure out who they're going to when they start Googling doctors. And if they have to choose between somebody who has a website and somebody who doesn't, they will always, always, always choose the practice as a website. If there's a website that has a picture of the provider, no matter how ugly he or she may be, if they're choosing between a website that has a picture and doesn't have a picture, they will always choose the website with a photo of provider. Some basic, simple things that we don't think about, but if you're starting a website, you need to do that. So what did we do? We built a website. Before we opened up our 4 walls, while everything's being built out, we bought a local cell phone with a 619 area code. So we had a phone number and we had the website go live. So we could take calls and make appointments. When we opened on August 5th, 2007, we opened with patients. It wasn't a full day, it wasn't a full week, but we had some patients every day. Why? Because we had a website. The website was listed on Google, it was listed on Yelp. And if you look now, this last month, we had over 2,500 people found us on Google. It's important, and Anand said this, it's important to keep your Google listing up to date. If, Memorial Day is next Monday, my Google list shows that we are closed on Memorial Day. People need to know they can rely on these kinds of listings because people rely on Google and Yelp and all of this. And just so you know, when you have a patient who's had a bad time, they're going to write a nasty, review on Yelp. It's just the reality. If they write something that's not true, you can write. I had an ex-husband of a patient who wrote a very nasty review. They were in a court case against each other. And I wrote to Yelp and I said, this man has never been in our office. He is nasty. He's writing this because he hates his ex-wife, blah, blah, blah. They took the review off. Other reviews are legitimate. They just didn't have a good time. Your job is then to get other patients to write some positive reviews and literally will drive it down on that list. These are all realities. One of the things that we did with this whole idea of education is we have a loss leader. When you go on our website, and I'll show you in a minute, you can set, we require all patients to do a courtesy call. We are a very different practice than most of you are involved in. We are a cash practice because our patients come to us from around the world. They're not local patients. So we want to be able to maximize that visit. We want to be able to have all of the diagnostic testing on that first day, which doesn't match with an insurance model. We are not a concierge practice. We do not take a fee for annual visits. We care for our patients like a concierge practice would, but we are not a concierge practice. We're fee for service. And people need to know ahead of time what they're going to expect. And whether you are a practice like ours with a 3-hour first patient new visit, or if you're a more traditional practice like Anand's, when a patient comes to you for a sexual health problem, it's very different than when they're going for a more traditional problem. And this provides them an opportunity to have an idea of what to expect. And also allows us to be able to figure out what testing we're going to do so we can give them an idea of cost so they can make a decision. About 20% of these people who take advantage of these free calls convert to actually being patients. Some will do it as soon as they're off the phone with whoever they're doing the call with. Some will do it within a week and some may take a year. We always tell people, we have electronic health records. These notes will stay in our system. You can decide in a day, a month, a year that you want to come in and we'll still have these. It costs us nothing except for we obviously have no income during those 10-minute phone calls, but ultimately it makes for a happier patient when they come in. And so that is our biggest loss leader to get patients in. We have a YouTube channel and we have some patient testimonials and we have some actually diagnostic testing that we do. We have a Facebook page. We have a Twitter account. I will confess we don't have the followers that Rachel does. I do not tweet. I don't have the time. One of our staff tweets and basically only tweets when I ask her to tweet something. But still, every one of our addresses on our emails has all of that contact information for patients. The biggest thing with a website is you have to stay current. If you build a website and leave it, it becomes stagnant. And those spiders that crawl through the back ends of the web, I mean, they are what brings you up on Google. Those change all the time, the strategies of how they do those. And so if you don't hire a professional to do SEO, to maintain your content properly, you're gonna lose. We pay $800 a month. It provides us SEO. We have a content management system built in, so I can add anything in or change anything in I want to. It's not a big deal to do it. But when there are upgrades to programs, that has to be done by the website developer. And the SEO, I will say that Rachel's partner, Jim Simon, said to me yesterday, he was unbelievable the SEO we have. And I said, oh, you're looking to see if you can use the same words. I don't know how my developer does it, but $800 in a cash practice is less than a new patient visit. So if I can get one new patient a month out of paying for my web support, it's worth every penny. And obviously we have far more than that. Our biggest referral base are self-referrals coming through the website, and then our next or those patients telling friends. Our next biggest referral base is actually from community groups that we've put together. And those community groups are, we have a group of sex therapy, people who are interested in sex therapy, education, and medicine. We call it STEM. We named it before STEM was, was the, science, technology. But it's before COVID, we met regularly. People took turns giving lectures, but it's in San Diego County. So these are sex therapists mostly. They know we are here for them. Then we have a group called PFISM, Pelvic Floor and Sexual Medicine Providers. It's all of Southern California. It's a very extensive group. I mean, we have about 200 people on that listing. And again, before COVID, we used to meet quarterly at different locations and have large programs. But these are our referrals because we don't get referrals from local doctors. It's just the reality. But let me show you. I do want to thank Kix Creative for their web design, their SEO report, shameless plug. Let me get to my website because Amy asked me to show that. So give me a second. So this is my website. If you look at the menu, people can see directly what they want. You want something.
PowerPoint screen.
I'm sorry?
Oh, I still see your PowerPoint screen.
Oh, okay. Let me just stop. I guess I have to stop share and open share again. How do I do that? Oh, there we go. Sorry, I just went to the other. Okay, you can see it now? Okay. So we wanted, again, it's free education. We wanted to get as much information out there. If people choose to take this information and go to their local provider, that's totally fine. We're really a tertiary referral center. I mean, if somebody wants Viagra, they're pretty silly coming to us. But if somebody doesn't want an implant and they want to, see what other things they can, possibly do, they can come to us. We've divided it by male and female where, sometimes you just have to do gender divisions. It's just easier. Our registration papers are not divided by gender because people clearly are not divided by gender. But so we'll just show you quickly. This is homepage for, for men, some basic information. Then we have lots of different disease states. And we talked, okay, let's talk about, okay, so PSSD. Oh, that one's, we don't want to. Haven't filled that one out much, but let me find a better one. So what's a cool one? Okay, so we can go to the erectile dysfunction. I mean, obviously I've got lots of information out there. It's all free for the taking. This is not, left for, for the local provider to say, sorry, it's not left that they can only see this if they're our patient. This is designed for anyone to get access because we believe in education. And on the bottom, contact us and they can fill out this form and it comes to a special email that I monitor, and then we can call them back and set up that free 10-minute call. We also have, let's go back here. We list our clinical trials. We have video library. You can find out about us and meet our staff. I mean, we talked about the importance of having pictures of, who's there. The more pages you have, the more likely that those crawlers are going to find you when they're doing Google. So our pages, we have a ton of pages, not because we want SEO, but because there's a ton of stuff to get there, to be available to patients. And that's what we want. We want is, as much information for patients it can go. And we have our COVID-19 policy right out there. We actually took our website, and when everything shut down and when we were allowed to reopen as a practice, my web designer literally put like a scrim over our whole website. You'll see those like a haze. And that happened with COVID, letting people know, along with our specific policy, that, we have protections in place, wear masks. It's just a very subtle way of doing it, but it's a very patient-friendly design website. And we are fully booked, and we're not booked because the local urologist is referring us, because the local urologists do not refer to us. We're booked because people find us. We're user-friendly, and we take the high road. If we can find somebody, if somebody's calling and they live in the DC, we're going to send them to Rachel. If they live in Augusta, we may send them to Sharita King, our former fellows or colleagues. What we really believe in education, and for us, that's probably the most important thing there is. anyway. That's it.
Awesome. I love it. So let's see, maybe unshare your screen, which I think we're there right now. All right, cool. All right, I don't see, we got a quiet group tonight. I'm just checking the Q&A, nothing. Awesome. Okay. So, all right, I think we all know that this needs to be done, whether you're a fellow, a resident, a medical student, a few years or several years into practice. We all know that building a website and an online digital footprint is important. But from hearing from each of you, it's like there's so many things that we can do. Where does one begin? So what is one piece of advice for where one would begin when it comes to building the digital footprint, whether it's related to Twitter or a website? And I'll start first here. I would say just creating content and finding out in what mode do you shine when it comes to creating content. And some people are really good with written word, and some people are really good with podcasting, and some people are really good on video. And I enjoy the written word. I like to write. I blog sometimes for the Urology Times. I would say I've done some podcasts, but if I'm so passionate that if you don't see a smile on my face in regards to what I'm talking about, it can come off as a little aggressive. So I would say podcasting is not my favorite. And I enjoy video. I like showing the audience a little bit about myself with my background without actually having to tell the audience about me. So creating the YouTube content, and I hired a videographer. He's an undergrad student. I saw some videos he was posting on Twitter. I sent him a DM and I said, Stu, are you looking for some work? And Stu is my guy. So if I'm, recording something with a pharmacist or a pelvic floor physical therapist, I get Stu on the email and I get that person on the email and I say, where are we going to meet to tape? And then I let Stu do the recording and the editing, and I pay him to do it. Because I know we all want to create these videos, but if you have the footage, a lot of us have the footage, what do you do with that footage? And it always gets pushed to the back because we have so many other things. So hiring someone who can do that work for us. All right, Sue, you want to go next with where to start?
I do. I think you're totally right, Amy. I mean, you have to have the content. You have to know where you're comfortable, but you also have to know what your weaknesses are and hiring the right person. I mean, for us, having Keeks design our website is, I hear all the time how patient-friendly it is, how user-friendly it is. If you have the best content in the world, if you have a website that's unattractive, no one's going to find you. If you have a website that has no SEO, no one's going to find you. You've hired Stu to do your video. For us, for our videos, for a long time, I have a son-in-law who's a screenwriter, but he also has he was a movie director as his undergrad from Tisch. So we used to give him our YouTube videos and he would fix them up for us before we would post them. It doesn't matter if it's family, if it's a friend, but someone who has an ability that you aren't smart, that is not your strength, to be able to recognize, I don't do this well, I need help. And whether it's going to cost you $25 or $2,500, know what you can do that well, and then bring in support. I mean, you would never go to the OR without having the best scrub nurse with you. So why is this any different?
So what I will say there is, I think that scares people into starting something, and they're worried, well, if I can't be perfect, if it can't be as dazzling as Amy Perlman's videos and TikToks, and if I can't look, I got a face for radio, people. This is, I am terrified of doing video content. I am terrified of Instagram because everyone just takes these beautiful filtered photos and let me teach you about vaginal discharge. That's weird. Why do I want to see a beautiful picture of you and then you're talking about vaginal discharge? That's weird. I don't get Instagram. I just don't get it. But I see how important it is, and you got to just put stuff out there and then learn. I think authenticity is so much more important than it looking perfect. Is why I'm successful on Twitter is because I'm me. I'm authentic. I'm weird. I'm funny. I engage people, and I'm not trying too hard. I do think when you pay for social media, those accounts that have paid tweets or paid Facebook posts, they don't land well. They don't gather followers. That's not what gets you. It's the authenticity. It's the relationship relationships. And people, the reason Dr. Goldstein's so successful is he's one of the most authentic people in the world. To listen to him, to talk to him, it's infectious because you know how much he truly cares about what he does. And that's something that I learned very much from him. So it doesn't have to be perfect for you to just put stuff out there, whether it's on Twitter or YouTube. You know, when I was a fellow, vestibulectomies, there was no surgery on YouTube, you know, implants. I can see thousands and thousands of videos. I said, okay, I have a vestibulectomy with Dr. Goldstein. Let me like look up and see how to do it. And nothing existed. So we videotaped it. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't amazing. I did an abstract out of it. It has 38,000 views on YouTube, 38,000 views.
Pretty, and it was amazing. You did a fabulous job on that.
Thank you, Mama Sue. See, this is why positive reinforcement, having your mother around all the time, it makes you feel good about yourself. But that's a big deal. Patients wanted to see that, right? It didn't exist until we said, well, let's just put something out there. So just start somewhere. It can be on TikTok. It can be on YouTube. You know, I agree with Amy. Find what you're good at. I'm good at 120 characters. I'm not as good in a beautiful filtered picture of let's talk about discharge, right? So find what you're good at.
Awesome. Nanan?
Yes, I agree with everything you guys said. I think it's important it's impossible to do every single thing perfectly, right? There's just so many options, there's so many different platforms. I agree with getting help, and I agree with delegating what you can, right? I don't have the knowledge to make my own website, do the SEO, nothing like that. So I think that's a big key. I think starting somewhere and just creating accounts everywhere is important to get a feel for what these platforms are like. You can see what other people are doing. Is that something you're interested in, something you want to be involved with? Gives you kind of a flavor for each different platform and how you can get involved. My one like little tip that I sort of bug the residents now, if you know where you're going to end up, pick up the domain now. That's my big thing. If you know where you want to end up long-term, pick up your domains now and get them early so you can kind of have them.
Awesome. So next question, for those who might want to build a website, how does one find a website developer? So I'm developing one now with my sister, and we met with various companies, and we were meeting with companies that are used to working with Fortune 500 companies. And what we found in those discussions is the initial, 2 to 4 hour vetting session is $2,000+, and they couldn't tailor their offerings down to help healthcare providers because they're so used to working with these big companies. So at the end of some of those discussions, our question was, so is this going to cost us $20,000 or $60,000 over the next 6 months? And the key, and the person that we're working with now is used to working with healthcare providers. So my advice there would be, don't work with the people who work with these large companies because they're not going to be able to give you an affordable price. Thoughts from the rest of the group?
I think that's a great point. Definitely work with a company that does healthcare providers. Find a website you like of a doctor you like, and don't reinvent the wheel. Ask them who they used. I don't think you need to go start back to the basics. There are plenty of companies that work specifically with physicians for this, and I think their prices are probably more reasonable.
One place that I found is a hidden golden, amazing place is I only use Facebook for private groups, and there are giant, right? There's a physician moms group that has 80,000 women physicians on it. There is a women urology Facebook group that has thousands of women urologists on it. There is a thriving urology practice group that's run by a guy, John Lynn in Arizona, who they will have every tip and trick of how to run a private urology practice. There are private practice urology Facebook groups. There are these private groups, and they will answer everything for you, because what I have found in this weird niche is that people actually want to give you advice. They want to help you. They want to say, oh, I had a business coach. They were really helpful for X, Y, and Z. Or, oh, let me tell you about how we're making the most of X, Y, and Z. And so people love to brag and talk about when things are going well. And people actually do genuinely want to help you. And that's been unbelievably helpful. And I get a ton of patience from it, actually, because if you talk about what you're passionate about, I had a woman from Norfolk, Virginia, pediatrician, came to see me today with low libido. And she said, I like the things you're writing on Facebook. It makes sense to me. I know you know what you're talking about. And so she showed up, and that is very cool. So Facebook, these hidden groups are a gem.
Awesome. And Rachel, I wanted to add on to the point that you made earlier in terms of making connections with people who are already doing it well. You're doing an Instagram live event tonight with someone who has 25,000, followers. I recently met a woman, Rainey. She's a medical student, and she has an Instagram called Sexplained and puts evidence-based, really good infographics. And so I sent her a direct message, and we're coming up with some content together. And she has thousands of followers on Instagram. So just sending direct messages to the people who are already doing it well and saying, hey, I'm a urologist. I wonder if we can come up with some shared content or an event. And then both people are winning, and you're giving, the other, as a urologist, if you reach out to most people who are not medical doctors, then you're both reinforcing each other's messages there. Any thoughts about that comment, or what's worked well for you, Rachel?
I couldn't agree more. And I just wish there were more hours in the day. I'm freaking tired, people. I have 2 small kids. I work in a private practice. I work my butt off. And this idea, it's hard, right? Having enough time for research or projects or speaking, and I'm really tired. And this is really hard in pandemic. I actually think pandemic has been a blessing for my life, because I'm wearing sweatpants right now. I just got to read to the kids before, bedtime. And yet I've been able to get on these webinars. I'm going to go do an Instagram live now. And I've been in conferences. I'm in Portugal this weekend, which stinks that I'm not actually in Portugal, but I get to teach in Portugal this weekend, but not leave my family. I actually have a FONO instead of FOMO, fear of missing out. I have fear of normal, right? I have a fear of going to the SMSNA and traveling for ISWISH and traveling for all these places, because I really like my sweatpants. And so I do think pandemic has really been great for my career, because I can be a mom, I can be a doctor on Zoom, I can, I don't have to travel, I don't have to pay for Ubers and hotels and do that. I can do drug talks, they've been great, if I'm helping a drug. So it's been actually a blessing. And I'm hopeful that it's at least going to be some kind of hybrid model, to be able to do more Zooming and more, group sessions and these Instagrams. So I don't know. I don't have a good answer. It's really hard. And it's finding those people who can sort of speed it up, like those business coaches or someone to teach me how to use Instagram, or, if you care about it, just learn how to do it. You learned how to do surgery. You learned how to do medicine. It can't be that hard to learn how to put a Canva together and do an Instagram post. It feels hard, but I don't think it truly is that hard.
Yeah, I agree. I was looking at all these posts on Instagram, and I was like, wow, how do they come up with that shading behind? And then I realized you go on Canva, it's not that difficult. You just have to pick the template. So, certainly everyone on this call is skilled enough to figure out those apps. We just have to know what apps to use.
I literally Googled today, what is a reel? And then there's these things where it's let me show you how to do it. And they teach you how to do it. And it seems silly, and it seems strange, and it seems unprofessional. But this is what the patients are finding and looking for. And there are every snake oil salesman in the world on Instagram selling every bit of snake oil. And it is a bajillion-dollar industry. And we are missing out. We are missing out on helping patients get really good evidence-based information. So it's a mistake not to get involved somehow.
Yeah, and an incredible opportunity. Now, we have some really great questions in the chat box here, both from Denise and Kevin, that touch on a similar point. So are there specific considerations or barriers anyone has had to overcome when balancing creation of a social media presence, personal websites, YouTube videos, while working in an academic setting? And talking about using university logos, et cetera. And I'll tackle that one first. I gave a grand rounds for our urology department maybe 1 or 2 months ago. And we usually talk about research, but I decided to talk about building one's digital platform. And I wasn't sure how that conversation was going to go in front of a lot of urologists. And I think what people realized when I was showing some of the YouTube and social media content that I've created is, oh my God, you're telling me we don't have to rely on our institution to create this educational material. We can do this ourselves. And I said, yeah, I'm not doing anything illegal by creating YouTube videos. And at the end of the day, we talk about what are the answers to burnout. Creating a social presence has been my answer to burnout, because some of these conversations with patients about sexual health topics can take 45 minutes to an hour. So during those conversations, because I know I can direct my patients to a YouTube video, I can say, look, we're just talking today. You can forget everything that I say because I have written material and I have it online. So let's just go through the options. And then I want you to watch the video at home a few times. And then when you come back, you're going to let me know what questions you have. And that's how it's really helped me with burnout. burnout. So I think people realize that it's not illegal to do it. But I will say on my social media, I'm Amy Perlman. I'm a urologist and men's health specialist. I don't say I'm at the University of Iowa hospitals and clinics. I don't say this is my number to schedule an appointment. So that's how I've gotten around, any concerns about putting that out on my own social media. Let's see, Nana, do you want to tackle that as well?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question. I think it's a little institution specific, right? So personally, I haven't had any sort of pushback at all from my institution, and I think most institutions are coming around and understanding this is important for their own practice, their own brand. You think about US World and News ranking or whatever, it's all dependent on how well known you are. And all of this helps significantly for the institution as a whole. I do think it's important to keep things somewhat separate, right? So obviously you got to have the disclaimer, which most institutions will have a policy of some sort of what you have to put in your Twitter, your user, your own, et cetera. As far as the website and things like that, I think it depends. Most places will have an institutional website, so they probably may not fund your own, but that also gives you a little bit more control on what you want to do with your website. I also think since you have a big institution behind you, you have some sort of resources coming with that, right? So it's totally fine to use them and have them make you a video and embed it on your website or link to it from your website, right? You kind of kill two birds with one stone there. And at the end of the day, it is benefiting the institution. So I think unless you're doing something outlandish, most are going to be pretty understanding about things.
Yeah. And then, just having an open conversation with your marketing department. I mean, I've had a meeting with our marketing team, and I let them know, I need to educate my patients, and these are some of my ideas. And they tell me, we don't have the money or resources to do that. And that's okay. People can tell me that, and that just means I have to pay for it on my own. And I'm okay with that answer as well. I think, what a lot of us have realized too, is we can't expect anyone to market for us if we're not marketing ourselves. And I think that's where it starts. And so the reality is at any of these multi-specialty clinics or small clinics or big institutions is we are not the only provider. And even if we're a new provider, we're one of many new providers who just started. And so that marketing team, time is money, and they have a lot of people that they're trying to, with these press releases and sort of, make those referral connections. So we are one in a big swimming pool. And so we have to take it on ourselves to, I think, market for ourselves. And then I think some of them might come around to say, wow, Nanan does a really good job with these seminars. Why don't we ask him to do something and we'll support it through our marketing department? But I think that's where it starts. Before we expect an institution to support us, we have to support ourselves. Any comments about anything that I mentioned there?
I think it's also important, when you approach your marketing department, don't hesitate to sort of give them ideas, things that you think would work. So we've done a bunch of Facebook ads for vasectomies, targeting, people like my age who have young kids, et cetera. So literally when my daughter is not sleeping at 2 or 3 in the morning, I'm scrolling through my Facebook and I see an ad for a vasectomy. That's I'm tempted, not gonna lie, So bring that up to them, and I think they'll really sort of embrace your ideas and run with it too.
So
go ahead.
I've been listening to a very good, interesting podcast called Entre MD, ENTRE, like entrepreneurial MD. And it's this woman who's a business coach, she's a doctor who's kind of switched her gears towards coaching doctors to realize you can be an entrepreneur, you can make money doing this. There can be side hustles, there can be, but she talks about how you're even if you work for a large institution, you're the CEO of your own life. You are the CEO of your own brand. And so you get to decide what that is. And we can all complain of, oh, no one's putting resources to me towards marketing, or nobody's paying attention to me, and whining about it. Or you can hustle, right? And when my doors open, I went out of fellowship into a cash practice with not a single patient waiting for me. And I didn't have any marketing dollars. I didn't have anybody walking me around with cupcakes or anything like that. And I picked up the phone and I met every pelvic floor physical therapist and sex therapist in town. And I said, my name's Rachel Rubin. Here is my cell phone number. I can't do this without you. And I never had a day where I didn't see a patient from the moment I opened my doors. And so you meet people where they are. You figure out who do I want to see, right? You call every primary care doctor and you say, here's my cell phone number, and they're going to come, right? But you get to decide your brand and your reputation, because every time a doctor or physical therapist refers to you, that's going to be a review right there, because the patient's going to come back and say, oh my God, she was amazing. This was such a great experience. And then you get another patient, and then you get another. And when you see that patient, then you text the physical therapist of thanks for sending Joe, you're right on the pelvic floor stuff. we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And then they say, oh, she's my team member in this. And I have been successful because of that. And because, so you get to decide your brand and how you reach out to people. And with the social media stuff, speaking gets speaking, right? The more I speak, the more I reach out to people and say, oh, she's not boring. Let's bring her to speak at our conference, right? Or, oh, she seems to know a lot about this one topic. Let's bring her to our conference. And I was a wallflower taking propanolol, but the more I started doing it, the more confident I got. And when you talk about women's sexual health and nobody knows anything, you don't have to worry. Nobody's going to correct you except Sue Goldstein. So, you know, it's you get to take ownership of your brand.
Awesome. And then just to touch base on a little bit of what Denise's question was, in terms of looking at other sources of funding. Oh gosh, hold on. Sorry, 1 second.
And that dog makes
my dog bark in the background. That's where you can also look at industry. That's where you can also look for industry and apply for unrestricted funding. So you can apply for Coloplast and Boston Scientific and do some of those online educational webinars to actually, you know, get people to come to your site and to educate them that way. But, you know, there are thousands of dollars sitting on the table for them to do these Facebook ads for webinars. And so take advantage of those opportunities. All right, so it is 7:57.
Well, she's with her dog. The one thing you do have to be careful of with Facebook in particular is the language. I've had our San Diego Sexual Medicine Facebook page shut down twice because it's pornography, and I have to write back to the authorities, explain it's a medical practice, this is what we do, and then it's turned right back on. But this can happen, so you just need to be vigilant with all of your social media that it always maintains, you know, the high road, that it's educational, that it's medical, and it's not porn, because it's not porn, but it'll be mistaken on occasion. And so you just need to, you know, take care with that.
Awesome. So we will wrap it up. Thank you all so much to our panelists and our attendees this evening. And you'll be able to access this recording on the SMSNA site in the future. So y'all have a good night.